Hi guys, it's Sam Day here from DeyTips.com, and in this video we have a special guest with us. It's Andrei from 1 Minute Economics. Hi Andrei, how are you doing today?
Doing great, thanks for having me, Sam.
Awesome, it's a pleasure to have you on the channel. So Andrei does a lot of economic stuff on his channel. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and also a bit about your YouTube channel and how you got started?
Well, I'm a bit of a weird economist if you think about how I started, in that I was an entrepreneur first and only then decided to become an economist. In that I'm some random dude from Romania, so it's not like my country is full of amazing opportunities offline. Therefore, for someone like myself, it made perfect sense to try something on the internet. So I did. When I was in high school, I learned to build websites. I was pretty good at English, so I wrote articles in English as well for people. So I started out doing basic freelance stuff, and that led to building a few simple businesses, but they went well. They went well enough for me to start building a little nest egg, especially since I'm not necessarily the type of person who splurges on gadgets or whatever. And it all seemed like a pretty straightforward life, in that I was making more than decent money for someone my age. I was actually making more than decent money for someone in Romania, come to think of it. Then I got accepted to college. Perfect, no problem at all. Again, perfectly straightforward, but you know what they say, the easiest way to make God laugh is to tell him about your plans. And essentially that was true in my case as well, because life happened. And in my case, this manifested itself, like for many other people as well, by the fact that my mom got sick. Like medical emergency, problems, surgery, treatment. And since the medical system in Romania back then was really not that great, I decided to basically use my money, the money I had set aside, and take her to a really good hospital in Vienna in Austria. And okay, fortunately things went great, but from the perspective of my net worth, my net worth no longer existed, because it had evaporated after, so many expenses, and I basically was forced to start from scratch. And the last thing on my mind at that point was going to college. So this isn't the type of story of someone who drops out of college, because I never went there in the first place for 2 years, because I took these 2 years off to say, look, it's time to hustle, it's time to work on my businesses, it's time to become financially secure, and then we'll see. So one thing led to another, my businesses did well, and 2 years or so down the road, I said, look, I am now looking at the perspective of going to college, as someone who is at least somewhat financially secure. I'm doing okay, my family's doing okay, so I'm approaching college from a position of relative financial safety. So I decided, especially since I've always loved economics and I always knew that this is the thing that gives me the most fulfillment, I've decided to go to college, from bachelor's to master's to PhD to whatever. But it's pretty strange for someone like myself to do it, after taking a break it's like it's not exactly your average story. But I think I've made these decisions for all the right reasons. I've followed my passion. I did the things I love, but I did them, at the right time for the right reason. Because yeah, it's easy to talk about doing the things you love. It's harder to put food on the table and do the things you love. Like that's kind of like the challenge we have to juggle. But fortunately, it worked out for me, and it kind of gave me the perfect context to try a nice little hobby that we now call 1 Minute Economics. Because it was never my intention for things to get so serious with 1 Minute Economics. I was like, okay, let me see what happens if I publish an animation once every couple of months, And I did. I was like, okay, I'm going to teach people about inflation, deflation, supply and demand, the basics. But it worked. It worked so well that a lot of viewers were like, hey, why don't you make more videos? Why don't you make a video about this? Why don't you make a video about that? And being the people pleaser that I am, I said, okay. And if you take a look at the playlist section of my channel right now, where I have a playlist for personal finance, one for economic history, economic philosophy, money and banking, you name it, take a close look at my first and biggest playlist. It's the playlist which lists all my animations, and I do this from time to time. It keeps me grounded, and it gives me goosebumps to to see that I now have not 1, 2, 3, 10 videos. I have like 150 videos on all sorts of topics related to economics. And that very playlist, it's a simple playlist that I just started, for the sake of having a playlist when I started the channel. That playlist has like, 200,000 views all by itself right now. And to me, it was a bit of an aha moment because I knew about Khan Academy. I consumed education-related content on YouTube myself, but I never really internalized the idea that YouTube can be such an effective medium for education. When it came to my perception, it was always like, yeah, sure, YouTube is this place where vloggers do challenges and set their hair on fire for millions of views. But once I decided to do my own thing, and once I realized that my own thing works, I saw that basically, there's gold in these hills. And the rest, as they say, is history, because one thing led to another. I said, okay, I propagate ideas on YouTube. Why don't I do the same in writing? So I decided to write books. Why don't I do the same in audio form? I have audiobook versions of my books. I'm invited on podcasts. So essentially, it became a lot clearer to me what I want to do in my life. Now, of course, I tell this to people right off the bat. You don't do YouTube, you don't write books because you want to get filthy rich. Because that's, your mind and your heart is not in the right place if you do it for those reasons, To this day, I have things like, for example, trading crypto, which make me more money than, running a YouTube channel. That's just the way it is. Maybe one of these days I'm going to be able to focus exclusively on just propagating ideas. But until then, I'm perfectly content, with the situation I have right now, which is kind of like finding the right balance between things that bring home the bacon and things that give me fulfillment. That's pretty much the zone I'm in right now. So if someone asks, what do you do for a living? I propagate ideas for a living. This is what I do.
Awesome. I like a lot of the things that you said there. And you spoke about creating crypto, and we're going to be touching on that in a little while. But my audience are mainly entrepreneurs who have businesses, who have websites, and they're trying to use that more or less as their full-time income and generate sales to that. And I just want to know, what advice would you give to them, or what advice does your channel give for people specifically in that particular niche or in that particular circumstance?
When it comes to your audience, it's actually an advantage that I'm a bit of an odd duck when it comes to economists, because I'm also an online entrepreneur. Like, I've ran hosting businesses. I've run web development businesses. I've done online marketing. I've traded crypto. I ran an online auction platform, a small escrow service. I've been in lots and lots of different industries that have to do with making money online. So that's one thing. But I'm also an economist. And as an economist who deals with so many people who make money online in one way or another, from freelancers to online business owners, marketers, or whatever, I noticed something interesting. That you have these smart, in some cases brilliant people who obviously are smart enough to make money online in the first place, which is a tremendous feat in and of itself, but they frequently tend to make poor financial choices. Like, I'm sure you know examples as well of people who did well online but then squandered all that money, and now they're not doing so great. These stories are so common, and it was so frustrating for me to see these things that I said, look, why don't I leverage my experience as someone who did so many things online to make money, and who is also an economist, and write a personal finance book just for people who make money online. Like, if you think about just how many people there are out there who are freelancers, run businesses, do online marketing or whatever, we're talking about millions upon millions of people. But nobody thought about writing a book for these people about how they should manage their money. And I said, look, I'm going to take over, and I published Wealth Management 2.0, which is my first book. Let me show it to you right here. It's basically a 400 plus page book through which, in a logical manner, from A to Z, I tell people everything I know from the perspective of an economist who wants to help them become better at managing their money. I tell them, look, Here are the most common mistakes that I've noticed. Let's talk about them. From obvious mistakes like trying to be a rock star and spending all your money on a fancy car, to less common mistakes like losing money despite trying to do the things that society tells you to do. Like, let's talk about mistakes. Next, let's talk about the mindset you should have. Like I call them the virtues of wealth management. Let's talk about, the kind of habits you should embrace and especially internalize so as to become wiser when it comes to managing your money. And of course, I took things one asset class at a time and said, look, you're someone who makes money online. Should you invest in stocks? Should you invest in real estate? What about exotic assets? What about domain names? What about crypto? So by taking things in a logical order and writing, if you read my books, it's kind of like having a friend talk to you. It's not like having an arrogant economics professor talk to you. And I think that's maybe the number one thing I provide in terms of value. Like, my books are conversational. I have people who read my books and who are like, I can actually envision you there talking to me when I read it. And once again, way too many of my peers, way too many economists love hearing themselves talk. They think being a good economist has to involve sounding as smart as possible, and each sentence that comes out of your mouth has to be something Nobel Prize worthy, There's just one problem with that. It doesn't work. And even more so, it turns people away from economics. Like if you're arrogant in your way of thinking, it's going to come across in your writing as well, And again, it just plain doesn't work. And everything I do when it comes to economics, I do because it works. Why are my videos getting popular or gaining so much traction? Because they work. Why do people like Wealth Management 2.0, my book? Because it works. Like, I'm in it to get results. I could care less about sounding smart. All I care about is for me to do what I'm dedicating my life to properly, which is articulating and propagating ideas. That's all I'm in it for.
Awesome. There's a lot of nuggets that you dropped there for us, and we're going to be speaking a little bit about the cryptocurrency, of which you kind of just glossed over a little bit, and we're going to go into depth into that in a little bit more detail. But I know you have another book that's coming out as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what your aims were when you was writing that book?
Yeah, well, I think even people who see me for the first time can tell that I'm a pretty balanced economist, Like, I'm not the type of guy who tells you we're never going to have a recession, but then again, I'm not the type of guy who tells you the world's going to end tomorrow, I'm kind of able to put this consistent, logical, and balanced approach on the table. But I'm worried. And when someone like myself is worried, then I think that's when people need to really think in a serious manner about what they're going to do. And what I'm worried about, plain and simple, is the fact that we are in, as a society, for what I like to call a big reset. Like, everyone knows that financial calamities are cyclical in nature. We had the dot-com bubble, we had the real estate bubble that burst. It's just, if humans were angels, then of course the economy would just move up in a predictable linear fashion, right? But we're not. When things are going good, we tend to get overly exuberant, and the same way, when things are bad, we get frightened and panic. So for this reason, we have the business cycle, and I'm not afraid of the business cycle. Like, as someone who even trades crypto, it's not like it would terrify me if the stock market would go down by 50 or 60%. It wouldn't. What I'm afraid of is the fact that while individual financial calamities are cyclical in nature and perfectly normal, every now and then we get a big reset, a point as of which the market decides it no longer accepts the status quo. And basically, in my new book, which is called The Age of Anomaly, Spotting Financial Storms in the Sea of Uncertainty, that's the full title. In this book, I basically try to teach people two things. One, how to become better at, hopefully, spotting financial calamities as early on as possible so as to position themselves properly. And perhaps more importantly, too, how to become more resilient in general, because we live in dangerous times. We live in unprecedented times. And I must have the humility of telling people that the next financial crisis may very well catch me by surprise as well. I'm not perfect. I'm not above, I'm not above failure. And therefore, it makes sense to dedicate just as much time as energy to becoming more financially resilient in general, which the average person is not. Like, just think about the United States, which is an insanely rich country, but we have studies like the 2015 Bankrate one, which shows that the average household would be caught off guard by something like a mere $500 to $1,000 expense, like medical expense, the car breaking down, or something like that. There are basically so many things, systemically speaking, that worry me. And, it kind of led to me having this deep sense of urgency associated with writing this book. And just like with my first book, I take things in a logical manner. Like, I tell people, let's start by taking a look at history. And I took various anomalies as case studies, from the tulip mania, which peaked in 1636 to 1637, so a long time ago, to more recent anomalies like the dot-com bubble, like the short domain mania of late 2015 to early 2016. I took all of these case studies because I believe everyone should know economic history properly, not because it's going to help you predict the future. You don't look at the past because it's going to help you predict the future. Nobody can predict the future. However, you look at the past because while history doesn't repeat itself, it does tend to rhyme. And that's the key here. Looking at the past because it tells us a lot of things about human nature. It's basically a mirror that gives us valuable feedback about who we are, about how we tend to act when things are grim, about why things become grim and why we facilitate that. That's why people should know their economic history, because it is an open lesson about human nature. So again, I took things in a logical manner. Let's take a look at history. Next, let's try to find patterns, common denominators, things that people did wrong, perhaps even in all of those anomalies, what we can learn from them and so on. So let's try to find some common denominators after looking at history. Let's analyze those common denominators so as to see what people did right, what people did wrong, and subsequently, what we should be doing ourselves. Next, as mentioned previously, of course, all of these things are going to help you pay attention to storm clouds that are gathering, much more so than the average individual, who is, unfortunately, for the most part, blissfully ignorant. But it still doesn't mean you're going to be a fortune teller. It still doesn't mean that you're going to have access to a working crystal ball. So again, in my book, I spend perhaps even more energy teaching people how to become more financially resilient in general, how to adopt smart habits that increase their financial resilience, how to work on all sorts of areas of their lives when it comes to, again, financial stuff like diversification, when it comes to psychological stuff like dealing with a huge loss. It seems like such a complex thing to do, but essentially it all boils down to this. Yeah, I'm worried about what's coming. I think, unfortunately, that just like with most big resets, the average person is going to be on the losing end of it. But it doesn't mean that preparing is complicated. It doesn't mean your entire life has to revolve around preparing. And basically, through my book, I tell people, look, of course, it's a 400 plus page book as well. But it's conversational. It's easy to read. If you want to, you can read it in, 3-4 days. It's something, my value proposition to people, just like with my YouTube channel and with the work I do in general, is this. I give you the best bang for your time that you possibly can. Like, if you read this really thorough book, then from A to Z, I'm going to tell you what I believe you should be doing as of this point. It's not something that's going to take over your life. You can continue, you have a job, you have a family. I understand that. I respect that. But at the same time, I'm here to tell you that when financial disaster strikes, when, not if, nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to care you were busy. Nobody's going to care that you're not passionate about economics. Nobody's going to care that you binge watched something on Netflix rather than become educated. So in the end, I try to tell people, okay, if you spend only a small fraction of the time you spend watching House of Cards or other shows on Netflix, if you spend only a fraction of that educating yourself and actively doing stuff, then you're going to be miles ahead of the average individual. This is pretty much what I keep telling people. Yes, you should be worried. Yes, now is the time to be worried, but it's not all doom and gloom. If you're smart about it, if you adopt a logical and consistent strategy, you're going to probably be fine.
Yes, it's really interesting, a lot of the stuff you're mentioning, and it's even helping me to start thinking and reshifting my mind. Like you said, it doesn't have to be something that is a dramatic shift or a dramatic change, but if we at least start thinking about some of the things that we want to change, and start thinking about our personal economics, and not necessarily just an economic downturn or crisis, but also like you was mentioning, we can have, anything could go on, like you mentioned earlier about, your mum being sick. I've had a similar experience as well, and just about really thinking about our finances personally and business wise, and things we can do to kind of start shifting it, really. So it's really useful information you're sharing there. I want to touch briefly on investing in crypto, because I don't know much about it, but I know that you know a lot about it, and maybe there's sections in your book about it as well, and that's possibly an option or a place where people can actually start investing and helping them to kind of prepare for some of the things that you've been speaking about, for things that are unexpected. Can you speak to us a little bit about creating crypto and some of the things that you've been doing with crypto, and whether or not that information is also available in the book?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I'm actually one of the few economists whom you can find in the eye of the hurricane. Like, I didn't just write about the short domain mania of late 2015 to early 2016. I was there. I was there. The same way, I don't just talk about crypto by regurgitating stuff that I read from other people. I actively invest in crypto. I actively trade crypto. And in both of my books, of course, I make it clear that for the overwhelming majority of my readers, they have no excuse. They have to at least have a bit of exposure to exotic assets, Like, of course, if you're 65 years old and can barely use your smartphone, then I'm not going to recommend something like crypto. But for a lot of people, especially for the demographics who will end up reading my book, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer because you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be, quote unquote, that guy who was there when all of these opportunities were just, all of them within reach, but you didn't do anything. Like, I'm far from the type of person who says that, for example, crypto is the solution to everything. No, crypto is not the solution to everything, but it's an awesome option to have. Like, just try to see the big picture. Like, let's take an extreme scenario. Someone who invested in Bitcoin when it was at 20,000 in late last year. So he invested at the worst possible time. But to make things more complicated, let's assume the person in question lives in a country like Syria, and that today he is forced to leave that country. We'll assume that person was an engineer, maybe. So what was his wealth, probably? Well, he probably owned a home, which I assume accounted for most of his net worth. He maybe owned a car, which accounted for a lot of his net worth. And then he had the crypto, the Bitcoin that he bought at 20,000, the worst possible time. That person is forced to leave the country. What happens? Well, when it comes to your net worth, to his net worth, I'm going to tell you what happens. His real estate essentially went to zero because he left it all behind. It's not like he can take his apartment or his house with him. So that's gone. His car, that's gone as well. He probably wasn't able to leave the country properly with it. Whereas when it comes to crypto, when it comes to Bitcoin, even if it went up so much, even if it went down so much in value, he can take that crypto with him by simply remembering a few words, and it might just be enough for him to start a new life. Therein lies the type of value that people need to understand. You know, it's even more portable, like for example, gold or silver, because again, if you have to leave a country like Syria and you have a bunch of silver on you or a bunch of gold on you, that probably won't end well, you know, because it might be confiscated at the border, it might be stolen from you. Whereas when it comes to crypto, you don't even have to have anything on your person. If you simply remember a string of words, you can have access to your crypto. And that's just amazing, of course. But in both of my books, and in the context of financial calamities, especially in the second one, in the Age of Anomaly, I do make it clear that, of course, precious metals are more portable than gold and silver, right? But just how useful would precious metals be to you if we started having severely limited access to the internet or no access to the internet? In that case, I'd much rather have some shiny gold in my pocket than a bunch of Bitcoin. So you see, they're all options. They're not good, they're not bad, they're all options, and if you're smart about it, they can complement one another nicely. And that's the key, you know? That's pretty much the key. Deciding which assets are investment grade or desirable in your case, and making it a goal to eventually have exposure to all of them. It's really not rocket science. And again, going back to crypto, it's a huge opportunity. It doesn't mean you should bet the farm. You shouldn't bet the farm on anything. It does, however, mean that if you're tech savvy enough to know how to use a smartphone or how to log into an email account or something like that, then you owe it to yourself to learn more about the various exotic assets that we're going to have at our disposal. Whether they're domain names, cryptocurrencies, or whatever else is going to come up, you kind of owe it to yourself so as not to be embarrassed in front of your future grandchildren, to at least say that you did your best to learn about them.
Awesome. Yeah, no, a lot of valuable information there. I think it's really starting to, like I was mentioning, you know, shift the way I'm thinking, and hopefully it's helping some of you as well watching this to shift the way you're thinking, and about not just making money and putting it in the bank, or, you know, trying to make money through your business, but also how do you invest that, and thinking about different calamities or different just obstacles that you could face in life, that we all face in life, and how you could invest that in different kind of ways. So not necessarily just in crypto, but Andrei was speaking about, you know, in investing in, you know, gold and silver, and kind of the different scenarios in which one or the other might be appropriate. Could you speak to us a little bit about the launch of the book? It's not just a book that, you know, I'm recommending and promoting you guys to get, but it's, as you can tell from this interview, it's so valuable, and a lot of the things that I didn't even know before meeting Andrei about investments and how important it is really to be forward thinking. So can you tell us a little bit, Andrei, about the book, where we can get it, and why it's important? I'm actually becoming very passionate about it myself. So do you have any special deals or special offers that we can benefit from?
Actually, yes, because like to generate a bit of buzz about it, and especially to make it available to pretty much anyone, you can have it if you order until Sunday. So I have a 1-week promo where it's just 99 cents, and it's 99 cents for a 400 plus page book, and I mean a large format book at that. But again, I write books, I do this YouTube thing, I do it from a perspective of relative financial safety. So I'm not necessarily in it for the money, and even more so. Like, you can find my book by simply searching for its name, The Age of Anomaly, on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, on iBooks, which is the Apple app, and on Kobo. But if for any reason you don't have access to it, like for example, if you live in a country that none of these platforms do business with, or maybe you're going to view this video later on when it's going to be like $10 or something, and you genuinely cannot afford it but want to read it, then I have a special email address set up, which is called friends@ageofanomaly.com, where people can contact me and say, look, it's not available in my country, or I just can't afford it, I'm in a bad place right now, just shoot me an email and I'm going to send you a free copy, okay? So it's, maybe you can put it in the description. I'm also going to send you the links for the various platforms that you can put in the description as well. My main goal here at this stage in my career, and especially in this context that we find ourselves in, It's just making my work available to as many people as possible. So, you know, it's until Sunday, it's just 99 cents. It's practically free anyway. But even if you can't afford it, if you can't get it, even if, you know, if you want this book and you want to read it, I'm going to find a way to get it to you.
Awesome. I'm extremely passionate about it. Like I said, it's helping me to really start thinking differently. So I'm going to grab myself a copy 100%, and I'm going to be on this journey along with you guys watching this video. I'm going to be on this journey as well. Really starting to think about investments. It's important to know how to generate income and starting a business, and that's great. But even if you don't have a business and you're just, you know, working a day-to-day job, you really need to start thinking about your financial security and also the security of your family as well, and what might happen, and just making sure you have things in place. So I'm definitely going to be reading the book and letting you guys know in another video about my thoughts on the book. But definitely grab a copy. I'll be leaving links in the description down below to where you can access the book. It's in different formats as well, Andre, isn't it?
Yeah, on Amazon and on Barnes & Noble, you can get the digital as well as the print format. On iBooks and Kobo, it's digital only. And also later this year, I'm going to have the audiobook format available as well, probably only on Amazon, so on Audible.
Awesome. So I'll have those linked up in the description as well. Andre, before we end this interview, I just want you to kind of speak about different places online where people can find more information about you and the work that you do and the information that you teach as well. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the easiest way to reach me is to just head on over to YouTube and search for 1 Minute Economics, or go to youtube.com/1 Minute Economics. You can find me there. You can comment on my videos. I do my best to keep in touch with people, and if you ask me something in the comments, I try to do my best to reply. You can also get my email address by checking out the About section of my channel, and again, I try to reply to as many emails as possible. So yeah, if you guys want to get in touch, and I would really appreciate it if you do, head on over to youtube.com/1 Minute Economics. Also, you know, to keep track of whatever it is I'm doing, maybe you want to subscribe as well and hit the bell button to get email notifications whenever stuff happens. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you follow me on YouTube, you're gonna know what I'm up to.
Awesome. Andre is now a friend of the channel. This is not going to be the last time he's on here. I'm sure there's so many questions that you guys have for him, so leave some of them in the comment section down below, and give us some ideas for what you want us to speak about next. But definitely make sure you go and grab a copy of the book. But that's all we have time for in this particular video. Again, if you want more information, make sure you go and check out the book. I'm extremely passionate and excited about it being released as well. So it's been great having you on, Andre. Any final thoughts for us before we go?
The number one message, I want to help people understand when it comes to my work, when it comes to economics, is the fact that behind numbers, there are people. This is why I do all of the things I do. This is why I don't trade crypto 24/7 or run businesses 24/7, even if it would make more money. Because a financial crisis is not something you see on TV and watch like you would a movie with popcorn in your mouth to see what happens next. We're talking about things that are going to make a lot of people lose everything. We're talking about lives that are going to be ruined. And we're talking about this very stubborn goal I have to make sure that as few as you as possible end up in that situation. Because it's not pretty, you know. I've been at rock bottom, and I really don't want you guys to experience that. Please don't.
Awesome. Thank you for all of the information and all of the advice. If you like this video, then please click the like button down below, and make sure you share this video with a friend. If you have any additional questions or comments, then leave them in the comment section. I'm sure Andre will answer some when he has the time to as well. But until next time, watch some of my other great videos. Make sure you go and check out Andrei's channel as well. Have a great day, and I will see you soon.